guys, welcome back to my channel. And today I will be talking to you guys about Rio. Now Rio starts out in the rainforest of Rio de Janeiro, where every bird is singing how they love Carnival. And And we see a little baby bluebird named Blue who is loving the music, so he is dancing and he wants to get out there and join everyone else. So he starts to lift his little wings, but then he gets captured. And so does every other bird that was in that rainforest. They get captured as well and put on a plane, and Blue is put on a truck, but the truck slides on some ice, but the truck is fine, but Blue is not, because Blue gets flew over in the snow when the truck slides on the ice. And he is found by a little girl named Linda, and she promises to take care of him. And they have been friends ever since she was a little girl. So Blue wakes her up. They they brush their teeth. They eat breakfast. And they open Linda's bookshop. And on that day, when Blue is drinking his hot chocolate and eating his cookies, a man bumps into Linda's bookstore, being so excited to see Blue that he starts talking Blue's language to him. And he bumps into the bookstore, and Linda helps him inside, and Linda asks him, Are you looking for some boot? And Linda asks him, And Linda asks him, are you, are you looking for some books? And Tulio says, no, I have come 10,000 miles looking for him. And he explains to Linda that Blue is the last male species of his kind, and that Dr. Tulio has found a female macaw like Blue, and his thought is if they can bring them together to make more blue macaws, that Blue's species can be saved. And Linda says, well, sure, when can she come over? And then Tulio explains that no, 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 no. Jewel is in Brazil. Blue must come to her in Rio de Janeiro. And Linda says Rio, Brazil. And she says, oh no, 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 no. And Linda explains how she never lets Blue out of her sight because Blue needs her. And they have their little and they have their little routine there, and they're not big on travel. And she also says that Blue can't even fly. And so Tulio then explains to her again how it's all arranged. You will be with him every step of the way, and I will be with you. And then he takes Blue and tries to make him fly, I guess. And it works for a little bit, but then he goes down on the ground. And then Linda picks him up and and uh, and actually she asks Blue, is he okay? And then she tells Dr. Tulio that it was nice to meet him and it was nice for him to come around and to squawk around and throw her bird, but now it is time for him to go. And Linda tells him to have a safe flight. But Tulio tells Linda that if they don't do this and get the blue macaws together, that Blue's entire species may be gone. And Tulio asks her just to think about it. And while Linda is sleeping, Blue tries to fly on his own by actually reading some books on flying, but when he starts to get but when he starts to get it down and he says to himself, flex, lift, drag, weight, he gets scared and he actually gets stuck in the Christmas lights that he put on the counter. And Linda goes downstairs to see what's going on, and she says Blue, and then she smiles, and then the next day they make a deal to go to Rio and to meet Jewel. But before they go, Jewel tells him that she promised that she would always look out for him and that she has never broken a promise and that she wouldn't have Blue do this if it wasn't the right thing to do. And so they do their special handshake, and Linda says, "Well, that's my big brave boy." And then they are off to Rio with Tulio. And while they are driving in Rio, they just arrived for Carnival. So Tulio tells them about Carnival and that everyone will be dancing and singing and dressed up in really cool outfits. And Blue meets some birds that are very nice, and Blue tells them that Blue is only there to meet a girl, and so they give him some advice. And so they are off to Tulio's office to see Jewel, and and actually they see Tulio's office, and Tulio helps with so many different birds and things. And Tulio helps with so many different birds. He tells Linda that some birds we had to rescue from some, and Tulio tells Linda that some birds we had to rescue, and we found this poor guy just last night, and the bird he is talking about is Nigel. And now, keep Nigel in mind because he will be coming back later. But when Blue told Nigel to get well soon, Nigel just looked at him very evilly. And it turns out that Jewel, well, Jewel is a blue macaw. Yeah, but she wants to escape and go back to the jungle, so Tulio gets Blue in there, and Tulio fixes Blue's hair, and because the guard that was guarding Jewel's cage got scratches on his face from Jewel, Blue says he doesn't want to go in there and that he wants to go home now. And then Tulio says, "Don't worry, I will make you look irresistible." So Tulio does his hair, and then he puts him in the same cage with Jewel. Now Jewel is ready to fight him. And Blue tells her that his name is Blue. And she realizes that he's American, so she actually talks American. So, not knowing that he can't fly just yet, she tried to escape with him, but Blue thinks that Jewel is trying to kiss him. So he goes in to kiss her, but then they end up fighting. But Tulio thinks and Linda think that they are getting along just fine. And so Tulio says, we should give them some privacy. And so when Tulio and Linda walk away from the scream, you can see Blue screaming, help me, she's beating me up. And then the camera just cuts. And then Tulio and Linda are out to dinner, and then they start talking about their favorite birds. And then when night hits, Jewel is Jewel is still trying to escape, and Blue is trying to sleep. And the night guard who is watching the birds, he starts dancing. And then he hears the noise, and then it's Nigel. And Nigel puts a rag over well, not Julio, forgive me. Sergey. He puts a he, he wait. He actually puts a rag over Sergey's face, and it makes him fall asleep, and so he escapes, and someone breaks in and takes and and actually takes Blue and um and actually takes Blue and Jewel. So, with Blue and Jewel gone, Sergey actually calls Tulio back and tells Tulio what happened. And then Linda says, oh, Blue, this is all my fault. We should never have left Salt Lake. And then Tulio tells Linda that it is not her fault. And then Linda says, you're right. It's not my fault. It's your fault. With your little birds of species and then Linda says, well, squawk, squawkity, squawk, squawk. And then Linda apologizes and she says, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to curse. And then Julio, and then Tulio asks, how could this happen? Sergey is the best guard in the business. And then Sergey and 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 then Sergey told the police officer what happened, and the police officer actually smells the napkin that Sergey had over his mouth, and he actually falls asleep too. And then, and then when they get taken to the building, it turned out that this person that took them is named Fernando, and he is a 10-year-old boy or 13. They didn't really say his age. And he and and Fernando takes him to a man named Marcel, and Marcel has these two guys working for him, and that they are going to sell birds to try to get money. So they were searching for the last two blue macaws, and they found them. So they chained them together. And but the bad news is that the two blue macaws are faking playing dead. So now they are playing dead. So with them playing dead, the boss is like, Fernando, I told you that I needed these birds alive. Tell me, does this look alive to you? And then Joel bites him, and then she flies off, and then leaving Blue there because he can't fly, but Joel doesn't know that yet. And Nigel gets Joel back in her cage with um with chained ankles. So now they have chained ankles. They didn't have chained ankles before. I apologize. So, so Blue says that was your plan, to take off and leave me. And then and and then Joel says, "Well, why didn't you follow me?" And then Blue says, well, and then they pay Farlando $2, and then he goes home and he lives on a rooftop by himself. And then he sees a blue feather that actually got caught in his shirt. And then he feels bad that the birds didn't escape. So, which is okay. Okay, so here's what happened. Yes, Nigel caught them and put them back in their cages. But Blue actually opened the door, and they actually had to walk out because they were actually planning to escape, because Nigel came in there, and he came in there in scared Blue and Jules, right? He scared Blue and Jules. So Jules started knocking the cage down to escape. And then Blue said, why don't you just open the door? And then she just gently just pulled them away and started to fly. But Blue, since he can't fly, he was hanging on with his beak. And then when he let go of the cage, they fell. And then Jules says, "You couldn't tell me you couldn't fly before now." And then and 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 then Blue says, "Well, it didn't matter before now." And they escape. And then the two boys are actually running around town trying to catch them. And Nigel did try to warn the boys that the birds escaped by stepping in front of the television and blocking the television so they couldn't see the game. But that didn't work, and the Blue Macaws escaped anyway, and they made it all the way to the jungle while the boys took Blue Dye and some chickens and and actually Blue dyed some chickens to look like the birds. And then and and then the boss says, "How stupid do you guys think I am? These are not the birds. Now tell me, how do two birds that are chained together escape?" And then one of the boys tells him not to worry because they got a plan. and 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 this is when the boss actually says, "Oh, what are you going to do? Go around town saying, 'Here, Birdie, Birdie, here, Birdie.'" And then he actually puts Nigel in charge, who gets monkeys that steal from people in Rio to actually search for the Blue Macaws and bring them back to Nigel so he can take them to his owner. So the monkeys agree after Nigel almost flies one monkey out of the sky. So the monkeys agree to help find the birds. And while that is happening, Blue and Jewel are trying to get the chain off by a rock, but that doesn't work. And then they stumble on Louise. Wait. And then they stumble, and then they walk into a home of little birds, cockatoos. They walk into some little cockatoo's birds, and then we meet the father cockatoo named Raphael. And then Raphael tells them that he knows somebody whose name is Louise and that he can take the chain off no problem. So along the way, Blue actually learned how to fly by Raphael, because Raphael tells him it is something that you feel in here, not in your brain, in your heart. And then when he tries to teach him, it doesn't go so well because they end up going on a paraglider, but Blue ends up enjoying it so much that he tries to fly off of the paraglider that he is on with Jewel right by his side, and they fall. But for like 5 minutes, when they were on the paraglider with the person who didn't even know the birds were on there, Blue was having a good time. I was proud of Blue. And then we bump into the birds that Blue met earlier in the film, and they meet Jewel, and that they think that they are a couple, so they take them to a festival, and they dance and have fun, and Blue starts to dance and have fun with Jewel, and they almost are about to kiss when the monkeys come for Blue and Jewel. But Raphael and his friends say they are not going anywhere with you, and it becomes a fight between birds and monkeys, and the birds win. And it turned out that they missed Louise because he's headed back to the garage. But they catch a bus, the next bus, by sitting on a bus to get to Louise. And everything is going great. And they are giving Blue pointers about how to approach Jules if he if he if he wait if he if he really likes if he really likes her. So everything is going great with Jules and Blue. And it turned out that they like each other now. Oh, and do you remember that little boy named Raphael? Well, it turns out that he actually found Linda and Tullio, and he actually took Linda and Tulio to the hideout where he brought the birds. And he is confused because now the birds are gone, but he said that the birds were right here because he was the one who brought them there. And Linda said that he that sh- that she is very and that she is very upset because she trusted him to help her find her birds. And it turned out that he was the one that took them, but he said that he needed the money. So, with that in mind, when somebody comes in, it turns out that it is the two boys loading up the truck. So he says, "Do you do you, do you guys have any work for me?" And then the guy starts to say, "Well, if you were here an hour ago, you could have helped us load the truck." And then the other guy hits him in the arm and tells him to shut up. Don't give it away. Don't give it away. Don't give away the plan. And so they actually dress up in their costumes and they actually go to Carnival because they're in the parade with their floats. And this is the night where the birds are supposed to be shipped off. So this is good, right? Because Jules and Blue are at Louise. And then they finally get the chain taken off. And so Jules starts to fly and Blue actually feels really bad and Jules and Blue actually have a fight and Blue says, "Jewel, I can't follow you everywhere you go." And then Jewel says, "Well, it's not my fault you can't fly." And then he and then Blue also says, "Do you know what else? I don't like the song that you guys sing. Tico Taco, yeah, yeah, yeah. Tico Taco, yeah, yeah, yeah. Well, I'm Tico Taco out of here." And then Jules gets upset and says, "Fine, so long, pet." And then Raphael tells them that they can't split up because they are the Juliet to his Romeo. And then Raphael tells his friends to follow Jewel while he handles well while he goes talk to Jules. Wait. While they go talk to Jules, he will go talk to Blue. And it turned out that Jules did feel the same way about Blue, that she did love him. And now she is crying, but Nigel has caught up to her, and Jules tries to fight him off, but Nigel gets the better hand, and he says, "Come on, we are going to a parade." The parade for Carnival. That's where they are going. Because Nigel's owner is at that parade, and he is waiting to have back the Blue McCalls. And with that in mind, Pedro and his friend actually get Raphael to help them, and Raphael tells Blue, I do love Carnival, but that is not the reason I'm going home, because I love my family much more, and that is the reason I'm going home, and that is a choice that I made with my heart, not with my head. Because he thought that him and Jewel couldn't be together because he couldn't fly. But that just wasn't true. And so they tell Raphael and Blue what is going on, and and then they get Louise, the dog, to help take them to the parade so they can go save Jewel from off of that truck. But when Blue actually gets captured, he actually tells Nigel, you really think I came alone? I have the biggest, baddest, toughest birds right behind me. And then it turned out that they are also stuck in a cage, but Blue ties the fire extinguisher to the cage, and it actually lifts the cage out, and they actually get all the birds out. But since Nigel caught them, Jewel now had the hurt wing, and Blue can't fly. So what happened is he defeats Nigel with that fire extinguisher, and he flies off to the back of the plane where his wings actually get destroyed from the back of the plane. And actually, Blue takes Jewel, and they actually fall out of the plane together, and Jewel tells Blue to let go of her because they are both going to fall to the ground, and she doesn't want Blue to get hurt. And then Blue says, I'm not going to let you go because we are chained together, birds, remember? And then they kiss, and then Blue's wings open up, and then he flies Jewel to Leo. Oh, and actually, Tulio and Linda were at the parade, and they did see Blue, and so they tried to go get Blue by using another float, but that didn't work. So Linda got another float, and she was trying to catch up to the plane, but that didn't work. But Blue actually, but it is okay because Blue saved the day, as I said, and now Jewel is taking to Tulio, and Tulio helps Jewel fly again. And then we cut over to a year later where Tulio and Linda has opened up a bird shop. Tulio's bird shop sanctuary where they save all the birds. So Linda is now working with Tulio. And that boy is now working with them. And I think they adopted him. Because you can see in the end credits that they opened the new shop and that they're always together. So I think that they adopted that boy as their son because he did say that he did say that he had no mother and no father. So I think he was an orphan. So I think that they adopted him at the end. So when Linda finds out that Blue knows how to fly, this is when Blue takes off with Jewel at the end of the movie, and Linda says, "Now that's my big brave boy." And then you can see Tulio and and Fernando and Linda watching them off as they fly off into the sunset. And then at the end, we get another "That's Why We Love Carnival" and "Living Our Life in the Jungle" song. And then it turned out that Blue and Jewel had babies. They had baby macaws, and that they are back in the jungle all together again once more. And that is the end of Rio. Bye, and see you guys in my next video.